I do quite often go to one of our local charity shops to look for glass to engrave, and you can get some lovely pieces of glass, usually very reasonably priced. One problem that can arise though is that the glass may be scratched, or it may have another type of flaw in it. This carafe is quite a nice carafe, but you'll see it has a bubble in it. Now, what am I going to do about that? Am I going to take this carafe that I have engraved and throw it away? Or am I going to try and see what I can do to fix it? Now, in reality, there's nothing I can do to fix a bubble in the glass. It's part of the glass. It's been there since ever the glass was made. But I can try to disguise it. The pattern I've put onto this carafe is a little pattern of blossom and leaves. It's quite organic. So the easiest thing for me to do is to add something to it to cover up this bubble. And I've decided I'm going to put a little butterfly over the top of it. Now, whenever you are looking to repair glass or cover up something like this, it makes sense to think about what it is you're covering up. In this case, it's a bubble. And the way the bubble forms inside the glass, the two edges are as they were before. In this case, they're parallel and fine. But because of the bubble in the middle, the glass at each side of that bubble is going to be very, very thin. That means I have to be very careful about how I go about engraving this glass. Now, as it happens, I think I'll be all right. I'm going to put a little butterfly over here, and I'm going to make sure that the body section of the butterfly is over the top of the bubble, and that body of the butterfly I'm going to make quite dark. That means I can engrave it with a white Arkansas stone and just surface engrave it and keep it quite dark, and it's very unlikely that I'll break through the thin glass and into the bubble. If I were to use a diamond bar there, which cuts much more deeply into the glass, there's a good chance I could break through into the bubble, and then I'd be left with an interesting problem to solve, where the only real solution to it would be to deeply engrave the body of the butterfly and hollow it out all the way along, which would always leave a weak spot, the thin wall at the back of it. So my attempt will be to keep this section surface engraved only and not break through into the bubble. So I use a white Arkansas stone on the body, and then a selection of white Arkansas to start with, some polishing rubbers, and a small diamond bar to put on this little fairly stylized butterfly. It's not meant to be any particular kind of butterfly, but just something to cover over this little problem, which fits in with the rest of the engraving. So instead of having to take what is actually quite a nice piece of glass and throw it out, I can salvage this situation by covering over what was a flaw. Now, I will say that covering scratches can be a lot more difficult than this. But in this case, because of the nature of it and because of the pattern that was on the glass, I was able to cover that over with the butterfly and end up with quite a pretty looking carafe at the end of it. Now, hopefully you won't have too many pieces of glass that have flaws in them, but if you do, remember, the easiest thing you can do, almost every time, the easiest thing you can do is find a way to engrave over the top of it. Add an extra leaf or an extra flower or a butterfly or a bee or whatever you like. But covering it over is far and away the easiest thing you can do, and for natural organic subjects that can often be quite easy to do. So I hope you find that helpful, and perhaps I'll see you for my next video.